Railroad conductors, engineers, switchpersons, and yard masters who are members of the United Transportation Union are exercising our right to informational picketing at Canadian Pacific, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
We're all out here in the cold, freezing, you know, just to show how resolved we are in the fact that we're being intimidated, harassed, told to do things that we know are unsafe. We're being forced to do the same amount of work with less men, less jobs.
In approximately 2012 and 2013, there was a change in leadership at Canadian Pacific Railway. We see a general deterioration in several areas of operations, mechanical, reduction in inspections, reductions in trainless verification, management directives that are questionable at best, consolidation of safety-sensitive positions that are frankly causing task overload.
Once the new regime came in, I would say about the beginning of 2013, big changes really started to happen. We used to be allowed 2 hours to get a train out of the yard once a crew was on duty. They lengthened that down to an hour and a half, so they put more pressure on you to get this stuff out.
They're trying to get us to just go, just leave the yard. Just take off and go. Just go. It doesn't matter if it's safe or not. We just want you out of the yard.
I have personally watched this yard go from a spectacularly run, efficient yard to the last 10 months or so going into a complete meltdown. Where we used to build 7 to 8 trains a shift, we are taking 2 crews to get 1 train out of the yard per shift. It is a travesty to watch the inefficiency going on here. I've seen them misroute cars. They've upped the speeds for humping. They've told us to hump hazardous material down clear alleys. They've removed the retarder systems on the west end of the yard and put skates, which are horribly inefficient for stopping cars. We've had issues of cars running out the west end of the hump yard and into the side of our switch jobs.
We had an incident where there were some cars on a track that were left there, and they told the fellers to leave the cars there. Then they didn't tell anybody else that worked in the area that there were some cars in the middle of this track. Well, other crews, other jobs were shoving into this track. Didn't know the cars were there, weren't told, and they ran into the cars at low speed. But when you run into the cars at low speed, they can derail. Thankfully, they didn't. As they were walking the track to figure out if they had derailed, here comes a full loaded oil train coming by, literally feet away on the next track.
This incident occurred at Canadian Pacific St. Paul Dunn Yard, track number 1, which is protected by shove lights, which will indicate that a track is clear.
It's right under the Battle Creek neighborhood in St. Paul. That was kind of the final straw for me.
CP used to have an evacuation route that ran completely through their yard from the west end of the yard to the east end of the yard, which was on a map that is given to the local fire department, police department, and emergency response HAZMAT teams. CP put tracks over the service road, and what they did was basically cut that evacuation route off. Last month we had a carman fall off of a four-wheeler, get injured, and because of that road not being there, he laid there in the snow for over an hour, and he had a spine injury where he laid there not being able to feel his feet, and there was nothing nothing anybody could do to help him.
One of the biggest changes that has affected the safety of the crews as well as the public at large is allowing less time for a crew to properly be briefed on what commodities they're carrying, what the hazards are in their train. You were allowed a reasonable amount of time to go through your paperwork, to job brief with your crew, to familiarize yourself with who you were working with, what your duties were for each member of the crew that day. If there's any safety concerns out on the track ahead of you, if there's any crossings that are possibly malfunctioning. You'd also go through all your hazardous waybilling to make sure you know exactly what dangerous commodities are in your train, where they're positioned at. It helped keep the work organized and safe. It helped it was performed in an efficient manner. And unfortunately now, the carriers sought to eliminate those job briefings or greatly reduce the time allotted for them.
This is a life and death job. When I went through training, we were going 6 months. They're trying to push these new students through in 12 weeks. We had 3 days out in the field where we learned to change knuckles, put on EOTs, make joints, use hand signs, talk to the engineer, that kind of thing. These guys are now getting one. It's like going to another country and learning a whole nother language and a whole nother culture. Everything about this job is completely 100% different than anything else. To have your training cut in half, that is a huge, huge, huge safety issue. I'm concerned that CP right now has such a low standard of safety that somebody will get killed.
We're in charge of maintaining and servicing the locomotives. They've cut our workforce drastically, and they want more productivity with fewer guys. On our service island, which is where we build the power for the trains, they aren't allowing us the proper amount of time to work up the engines to properly inspect them. When we do see problems that leaks or things like that, they're like, we don't care, it's got to go, which is in violation of FRA rules, and they just look the other way. They don't want to fix it. They don't want to bring it back in the shop. They said they need the power, and they want the freight moving now, which causes a safety hazard. There'll be times where there'll be 4 locomotives that we need to inspect, and then they've already called the crew. The crew's there waiting, and they're like, oh, you only got 5 minutes to look over these units. The crew's got to go. The car workers on the car side, they're forcing them to work 12 6-hour days. They took away one of their rest days. So they're getting overworked. They're getting worn out. They're working outside 12 hours a day, 6 days a week in these inclement weather.
This constant rush happens when you come on work, but they don't say anything about the 3 or 4 hours you sit there waiting for a yard job to get out of your way or to set out multiple bad orders.
As far as men working in the yard, we're giving no breaks, just maybe a lunch, and if they were, it was 20 minutes in, out, right now. Didn't matter whether it was 100 degrees out or what the temperature was.
Everybody can tell when they're out in Minnesota and it's 25 below wind chill, you need warm-up breaks. It's dangerous to be out in this kind of weather. We're being forced out. We're being told that if we don't, that we're somehow lazy or somehow not working hard enough when we just want to come in. We don't want to lose a limb. I don't want to lose a finger to frostbite. I don't want to lose my nose to frostbite. And we've got a lot of hard workers here. Guys that want to go in when it's cold, they're not allowed to come in when it's cold. You don't treat your dog like that.
On the day that it was standing air temperature was like 20 below zero that day. State warning out there. I got called into work. I think the wind chills of that day were about between 40 and 50 below zero. The first time I even came in, I was on duty out there working. I think it was like maybe 4 hours. I come inside to get a switch list, and at that time I grabbed the switches. I wasn't in there for no longer than 3 minutes, and one of the train masters come down there and had asked me if I got the proper paperwork that I needed, and I had said yeah, and he had told me to get right back out there. Didn't give me no time to warm up or nothing, and that the vice president was watching us on camera, that we need to get back out there and keep working. They don't care. They don't care about the safety of their employees.
The railroad has now welded the doors on the cabooses shut. They've disallowed us entrance into the caboose where the heater is. On many of the jobs, it's unavoidable that you're going to have to move in 2 different directions. The caboose was used to facilitate forward and reverse movements while creating a stable, safe platform from which to work from and to warn the public if there was any impending danger. And just so we're clear, when you're riding a caboose, you in fact have control of the braking system on a train. If there is an immediate danger in front of you, you could stop that train using the air brake on the caboose.
Crew fatigue is probably the biggest thing with railroad safety. With the cuts and everything going on at CP right now, the lineups are getting horrible. What a train lineup is basically it's what we follow to know when we need to be physically rested to take a train from point A to point B. And they're taking everybody and pulling them off of their assignments and sending them to all these other assignments because they don't have the manpower to fill it up. And as we talk about railroad safety, it's hard to be rested and come to work and work 12 hours when you don't know when you're physically going to go to work.
Instead of using corrective action, for the most part on minor, small offenses that they choose to punish and harass. For me, it's been difficult to watch the quality of people that I've seen be terminated. The excessive discipline. I mean, these are husbands, fathers, mothers. They have children that depend on this income, and they're being terminated for frivolous reasons, just as a basic source of intimidation to other members.
Most recently here, I was sick one day, and I missed my very first call in my entire 10 years of railroad. I had missed a call by 30 minutes. I called in crew management, they placed me on the train, I went to work. I was there for work that day, I worked that calendar day, I put in a 12-hour day as a matter of fact. Most employers would love to have an employee that only had one missed call. And when I did miss that call, I missed it by half an hour and I did work that day. He's counting it as a missed day. I was told last night that I'm out of service. I've been punished without even affording an investigation. They won't even tell me when the investigation is. I'm a single provider to my family. I don't know what to tell them. I'm without pay.
It's demoralizing, it's dehumanizing to the membership, and it's created an apathetic workforce.
I worked for this railroad for 40 years. I had authority of all crews, all trains coming in and out of St. Paul and the work done in the St. Paul yard. And after 40 years, because of the stress and the way that employees were being treated, I just couldn't take it anymore, and I went on a disability. I could not treat my fellow employees the way I was told to. It just goes against everything I am. Everyone that was a CP manager have now either gone back into the crafts, resigned, or whatever. They're no longer managers.
My impression is that it's more important for them to move cars than to worry about our safety.
Hopefully we get through this without something major happening. You know, we're in a major metropolitan area. If something bad were to happen, it wouldn't be good for the people that live around the area.